Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Cosmic Gossip. Again, today with me is our guest, Lyell Parry from Sweden. Am I right? And
Yes.
he's a man who could hear the Earth's heartbeat from very young. And also, most of his life, you could say he's a healer. Okay. So last time when we talked about the Atlantis, it generated a lot of extra gossip and discussions
Mm.
among our groups. And I would like to follow up with some of them. And you described Atlantis as a civilization quite advanced, and also it balanced the advanced technology, healing arts, and spiritual progression, philosophy, all of those into a very, you would say, advanced civilization. So, what made Atlantis so successful in its golden age? And what can we, modern society, learn from that today?
Wow. There's some big questions there, Yanong, but very, very good ones. Um, what you've asked to me is the whole relevance of looking back at the Atlantean times too. I mean, it's fascinating knowing what happened and what they did and all that. It really genuinely is. But it's what we can take from their lessons. So we can say that so that history doesn't repeat itself one more time. So Atlantis was, I mean, we tend to think of it as a finished product, but it was there for thousands of years. So they had their up and down times too, like any civilization. And when it ended, it was really past its golden age. Um, what had happened maybe one or two generations earlier, it's a lot of the great leaders had left the planet and gone on to colonize other places. It seems the Atlanteans were very good at doing this, that they had developed interstellar travel. In fact, they came at it in a way. They weren't one group of people, they were from all over the galaxy. Amongst others, some of our descendants, ancestors, sorry, some form of Homo sapiens, and probably some of us are physically descended from them today. I would guess not many. So that they already had input from very highly advanced civilizations in a way that we haven't on Earth. So that they really got off to a flying start, you could say,
I
in
see,
in,
I see.
in some
So
areas.
what you're saying is it's not an indigenous human society developed into that, but rather they are a group of people from all over the place. Let's say they are
Yes,
out of space people, and they're already
yes,
very advanced. So they brought it over and made this very great mixture on Earth. That kind
yes,
of made me realize some of the whispering now that Earth actually now has a lot of advanced beings helping us. Some of
yes.
this technology, AI, microcomputer, and supposedly even Wi-Fi type of technology really didn't came from our humans' mind. It came from somewhere else. So
Absolutely.
that actually connects, that advanced civilization flying out from who knows where, and it has its rise and fall. So one of them is the leaders left. And so humans today, if we don't want to repeat that rise and fall and disappear completely, looks like we do need to look further into that civilization to draw some parallels and lessons. So my second
Yes,
question to you is, you suggested actually the corruption began when power shifted from a very democratic kind of a structure to a very elite ruling. Sounds kind
yes.
of eerily familiar today. Do you see a strong parallel between Atlantis and today's global political economic system at all? Any parallel, any
Absolutely.
similarities?
Yeah, scarily many, in fact. What I would like to say that the first parallel I see in both civilizations is that's, I mean, if we're normal, balanced human beings, we live simply and we live well, think for each other. We have a good balance of head and heart, you would say, or feelings, intellect, however you choose to word it. But in both in our current situation and the Atlantis situation, somewhere along the line, that balance seems to have slipped more into the intellect. And I know how it happened in Atlantis because it happened just before I was there. And that was, like I said, a lot of the, or nearly all the great leaders left to colonize other places, which kind of left too big of a gap. You know,
Mm.
for the people that took over weren't really ready for, they weren't mature enough to follow on, unfortunately. And I feel that set up the pattern then of starting to exploit, taking a little bit more to myself than I should, bit more, a bit more. Oh, why not take the whole lot? I mean, I'm talking a little exaggerated here, but that's the tendency, you know. Who cares about my neighbors? You know, they let them rot, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
So we could see that parallel from a very big middle class and mostly it's a founded as a democratic system, for instance, of the West civilization. And now it's further polarized with a very small percentage of the people now massed a lot of power and wealth. And while left majority of the people now struggling, probably that struggle just
yeah,
started to really intensify. All right, so that really, I think, connects and make Atlantis a lot more relevant to our
very much.
conversation
Yeah.
today. All right. Also, your personal memory of being an Atlantician, a scientist working with energy system, adds a lot of intimate dimension here. How did revisiting that memory change your understanding of your purpose in this lifetime?
Oh, big time. He got all day. It's just a big
Well, you have to distill for us in 3 minutes,
Yeah,
okay?
I know. I okay. I in that lifetime I was a nerdy, slightly autistic scientist
Mhm.
with good intentions. I had a good heart, well-meaning, wanted to create the best I could with my job. And my job was a communicator between different groups of people who were creating a new power system, which was related to the resonance of the Earth's magnetic field,
I
and
see.
how to tune into that, how to direct it. And this information was coming from not on the planet, from groups far away. And my job was to collect this information, put it into a common language, and then pass it on to the people that would work with it. That's all very well and good, you know. But then some of my superiors saw some ways that they could just rearrange what I had been told to suit their own purposes more. I've asked to see this, but I will not, they don't want to show me what it is, nor how the system works. Otherwise, they'd be in there doing it probably. But but that was the corruption point that these superiors to me already had got into this me thing. And I hadn't at that point, but I allowed myself to be drawn into that. Oh, yeah, yeah, they're probably right. What do these guys out there in space know? We'll do it like this. And that was the beginning of the downfall of the whole system. So I didn't cause it, but my God, I had a big place in it. So, you know, I don't want to see it happen again, naturally. I don't think we're going to blow ourselves up, but we could easily destroy this wonderful planet. If and to me, it's why it's relevant to me now is because I see the bells going off. We're back there again, you know. And but now we know better. We know what to do, you know. So I want to see it happen. But I will
I
say, you
already could
know,
see some bleed over from that life. For instance, you worked with Earth's magnetic field, and then you can hear the Earth's Schumann resonance, for instance, right? That's intimate knowledge with it. And back then, you're a nerdy scientist. This life, you are a healer, not only for people, but for planet as well, right? And so and also this life, you're not that easily seduced by power and desire anymore. So we see a little bit advancement there. So this really invite the conversation among all of us. Your spiritual cultivation is not so much just up here in the head and in the void, but rather it need to be applied to the everyday life, right? When you face a different
Yes.
kind of temptations and such. Yeah. Um,
Absolutely. It's to keep, yeah, it's to keep integrity, to keep
correct, correct.
respect and for love for ourselves, for the planet, for everything. And that's what goes missing when we just hop off into our little head trips, you know. And little head trips can cause things like Atlantis to happen. So I shouldn't use the word little.
The ego trips, you're right. Yeah, because
Yeah.
that desire for more power, more impact, more influence, even if it may not be showing up in the form of currency, it's quite seductive when you feel so
Yeah.
hopeless. Right? You would think when I'm powerful, maybe I can make a difference, right? Yeah. So I hear.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would like to say too that, okay, for me, this is really matters a lot. This is why I'm back here on Earth to make sure we don't mess up again. But
Mm,
I will guarantee you, very many of the people out there viewing this now, will be feeling the same thing.
mm.
It's not just me. We
Yes,
were
there are a
hundreds of
group of people. Yeah.
thousands that have come
Yeah.
here now
Yeah.
to make sure that we do a good job of this transition period.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, either in conference or in books, I have encountered a lot of these people who clearly remember life after life. I
Yes.
have a book called Life After Life. They seem, when they bring all those lessons with them, they seem to be a bit more mature and longer visioned to really help us understand what's the true journey of our consciousness here. So you mentioned that the fear and unresolved karma from Atlantis followed you through many lifetimes, actually, and
Oh,
it
yes.
cost your life in 2024. What was the turning point that helped you to
Oh,
break that cycle of karma, if you will?
well, but completely out of the blue, I got put back in a situation again, very similar to the Atlantean one. I won't go into details of it now because I want us to keep focused on what we're doing here. But it was identical situation. It was communicating an energy system between groups. And I thought, oh my God, no, 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 not again. It's
The
I,
deja vu kind of a feeling, huh? Yeah.
very, very deja vu.
Mm, mm.
Um, but I did the job. It was successful and it worked really well. Nothing blew up
This time, okay.
this time. Yeah.
All right.
But what happened, as you know, in Chinese medicine, we look very much at how different emotions and fears affect different parts of our being, of our body. And what happened in that specific case in 2024, which, by the way, was 2 years after I did this project.
Mm.
Um, what happened physically was the bladder got blocked, the urine came up, poisoned the kidneys, and I was on the verge of getting, do you say sepsis in English?
Septic, yes,
Blood poisoning,
sepsis,
yeah.
correct.
Um, and by a whole series of coincidences, I got in hospital in time with hours left to live. Because if your kidneys are damaged and you get sepsis, that's it.
You're correct.
Um, so that's what happened physically to me. Um, I got it fixed, thank goodness, But when I look back, okay, what was happening? What was behind that whole
Mm.
action? It was that old fear of using my wisdom, which the kidneys represent very much.
Yeah,
Um,
water.
Yes, exactly. Using it well, sharing it. And I was so afraid doing that project, it was terrifying, but I knew I needed to do it and I did it. But then it had a little backlash that I just described. So that was
Mm,
the turning point.
mm,
And that is 2 years ago now. My body is 95% recovered, thank goodness. I feel healthier than ever. But on
mm,
the soul level, I'm I said to you before we started, just this last week I've had this really weird thing happening in my body with a high fever and coughing, and it's the last little remnants of those old feelings just leaving
mm,
me. So it's amazing timing that we're doing this now,
mm.
It's like
Yeah,
letting go.
quite a few powerful spiritual and energetic energy healers. They could see the connection between the soul level, the
Yeah.
emotional level, and the physical level. And it's I think it's fortunate that you are able to make that connection and aware of where the physical toxins actually came from, a spiritual fear, or even a repeated experience, if you will, of the soul. Okay, that's interesting. So
It,
this really creates emotional depth and helps the listeners relate uh, that previous life's experience is not
Mm,
just fantasy or a fleeting thing. Because when we say you have, for instance, phobia, unexplained phobia, or
yeah.
all the diseases you can eliminate, it's not a pathogenic, it's not physical, and it's not emotional. And some of them, the Chinese medicine does have that layer and say it may be previous life's karma
Mm,
that's showing through. And of course, modern medicine doesn't really address that connection at all, right? So for you, uh, fortunately, that personal transformation came from that spiritual awareness. So that's,
yes.
yeah, that's very, very interesting. It brings some, for me, it brings some profound realization there to go deeper in digging the reasons, the causes of a physical disease.
Yes,
Um,
and for me it was great material too, because I mean that's part of my work here is working with shiatsu
mm,
therapy, and that's exactly what we're talking about with that. Maybe not always going into the depths of past lifetime influences, but in my case it was a pretty extreme example, and that's what it was. Fear of not using my the wisdom I had to in case it
mm.
I blew something up again.
Yeah, and interesting showed up in the kidney system. So in Chinese medicine, that's water representing a wisdom, but not any wisdom, but pre-heaven, meaning it came from
Yeah.
before you were born to this earth. You're bringing
Yes.
the celestial,
Invite.
the
Yeah.
outer outer
Yes.
space, kind of a bigger visioned wisdom that rather than just the wisdom for surviving this world. This brings me to the next question. If Atlantis could have saved by, preserving the balance between the heart and the head, preserving, the technological advancement and the spiritual progression, if they can do that, what kind of practical steps could you see that they could do that be relevant, that would be an example for us human beings?
What they could have done? Oh,
Mhm.
yes, of course. Yeah, that's the biggie. And that's really to me, the whole purpose of even looking at Atlantis. I'm always a little nervous about talking about past life stuff and that in case it gets too sensational. But we need to this time because it's such a big lesson. And we're right at the point now where it's most relevant. What they could have done is what to say it simply, quit being greedy. Come
Mm,
back to the heart. That's the bottom line, you know. But how to do it? That's a lot of unlearning has to happen, and you have to have a real the main mass of people wanting to do that. You have the ones doing the control. They're not going to want to change because they've got all the goodies, and have gone past empathy and feeling. And the ones, I don't want to call them the victims, but the ones that are suffering, you know, they feel they don't have the power to do anything. So what I'm saying that they could have done then and we could have done, can do now, is the one and the same thing. That if we can collectively come back to the heart and be there, then we can influence the entire consciousness of the planet. It's not
Mm,
going to make anything suddenly overnight change, but in a way it will. You know, what I
mm,
mean is the consciousness might change, the physical reality might take a little while longer to catch up,
mm.
and could well be a lot of destruction in that process. I think we touched on that last time too. But
So
and
what you're saying is not so much chasing the outside goals and shining things out there, but
yeah,
return inside and then
yes,
truly start cultivating the heart in the Chinese medicine. Again, we call it the ruler of your being. It's
yes,
not just a pump. Actually, it is your consciousness pre-heaven, post-heaven manifested as the rule, as the monarch of this life of you. So how it takes the reign really now affects your heart and head balance in a sense. Yeah.
mm. Because if we think that when we, I mean, to me, be having that balance is what we're born with. It's natural. So to me, to come back to that is a process of unlearning, unlearning what, society teaches us to be, and realize that we maybe don't need to work as hard as we do and make ourselves sick, and maybe demand less of life physically. Um, think more of others, of the environment. But that's a lot of unconditioning to do. And to me, the shortcut is what I said, if we can just take time to come back here, come
Okay.
home in the
Yeah.
heart.
Source
And
from within. Yeah.
I know that my dear colleagues Brigitte and Bisong, who are going to do some follow-up podcasts, will be talking about more practical aspects
How
of
to.
this too.
The how
Yes,
to.
the how
Okay.
to. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's easy for me to say, oh, I'll come back into your heart and think, oh, yeah, okay, well, where do you start?
Okay. Once you have that idea or intention, how do you really do that? Okay. When Plato first described Atlantis as a powerful island civilization that fell in a single day and a night, okay, of misfortune, do you believe this account was actually based on historical fact, or it's barely a symbolic teaching, or
Oh,
bit of
yeah.
both? Yeah.
I got an answer for you on that. A lot of how I get to know what we've been talking about is through the help of my guided teachers. I can check with Akashic Records. Anyone can do that. But you don't always see what you want to. But I did get to see some of what we're talking about here, Yinong. And the answer is yes or no. What happened was when the energy system kind of messed up, it created a kind of a fissure, the length of the Atlantic Ocean. Not the whole way, but here and there sort of thing. It really messed up the floor somehow. And so part of Atlantis was built on that, and that tilted. And so, yes, some of it did disappear into the sea. But we must remember that was at least 12,000 years ago, and the sea level was a lot lower. So probably not the whole place disappeared overnight, but a big chunk of it probably did. And also, Atlantis was not just the one area. They had colonies around in, well, Egypt and Middle America and things too, at the same time. They were not quite exactly the same civilizations, but they were all interconnected. And they didn't all disappear entirely at the same point either. But I also had a question, but I didn't get an answer on it. I wondered if this big collapse caused the Great Flood, but I did not
Believe
get shown that. And so
Okay.
it was a stop. No, you don't get to know
Okay. See, this is
that.
very interesting for you and some of the others there. You took this Atlantis civilization as something truly existed on Earth. But to some
Absolutely.
other
Yeah.
people, probably they think this is a bunch of hokey pokey, because
Oh, of course. Yeah.
there's really no decisive archaeological discoveries that pinpoint and say this is it, this is that. They saw something similar that they can conjecture and guess that might be, what slipped into the ocean.
Yeah.
But when we come to this point, I think whether the physicists or cosmic scientists, or as back as the Buddhist teachers, they all say actually what we see, what we experience, it's not really true reality. It's but a projection of it. And who
Yes.
are seeing it? You already look through your lens of your own value system, your
Mm.
own religious
Yeah.
background, which culture you're brought up in, what kind of mythology fed into, your spiritual and mental feast every day.
Yeah.
So of course we will see and hear and interpret very differently. So I guess for that, we'll leave it there, the ontology versus the methodology, what really is going on there as the reality, the truth. We will pause that, but rather we'll go a bit further. There are some other findings and hypotheses I thought would be fun to go into. Some researchers actually connected the Atlantis to volcanic disruption. They said it's
Mm.
actually on that Santorini
Santorini.
island.
Yeah.
It was
Mm.
this Minoan volcano erupted. That's really the reason, not so much their own failure of as a civilization. But some others point out to that, I think it's called
Yep.
recap, structure in Africa. And
Northern
they
Africa.
think
Yeah.
that's what, was really what the lost city was. Um, which one resonate with you? Or you're thinking it's really something else? It's something
No.
else at a bigger scale at work, not really a natural disaster kind of a occurrence.
I don't think Santorini's anything to do with it. That came much later. Uh,
Okay.
but um, but this thing in Africa, it could well have been what Plato's earlier colleagues saw as being part of an outpost of Atlantis, but it wasn't the main deal. Definitely not.
Mhm.
The main civilization was over closer to the North
Mhm.
American continent.
Mhm.
Um, so, I think probably things are not as black and white as we see, but Minoans came, well, they were pretty ancient, but Atlantis was much, much older, so
Older.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, somehow I'm hoping for some major archaeological breakthroughs and really try and find some evidence, just like our Shanghai Jing, the canon of the mountain and earth, mountain and ocean. They found it's not really describing China at all. It's describing a much bigger scale
Oh.
of the geological happenings. And in there, not only they are the magic mountains, they're also magic beasts, So it's going to be in my lifetime, if I can see any of those archaeological findings, as we already knew there are quite a bit mysteries here we couldn't really explain what we found, right? So my next question is, some actually believe the survivors of the Atlantis carried this wisdom to places like ancient Egypt or Mesoamerica or other ancient civilization. Do you think that the traces of the Atlantician knowledge still exist in sacred places or some of the mystic schools and metaphysical teachings or even some of the energy practices that's traced back to that?
I think that's a very, very possible scenario, absolutely. I think if we look at Central American buildings that were left there, that the Aztecs and Mayas had contact with, I think you'll probably find that those were actually from Atlantean times. and that other cultures came in after them.
Mhm.
So I think you've got direct remnants of Atlantean civilization there. Not in the form of what Aztecs and Mayas and the Incas n directly had, but they refer back to previous civilizations if you ask them to. So
Mhm.
yes, absolutely, definitely in that respect. Egypt was a bit kind of leftover bits, if you like. They were a bit later.
Mhm.
So it seems that my understanding of when everything had blown up and gone belly up, as it were, that really those that were left of the Atlantean culture, those that could, left the planet too. So in one way, we kind of eventually got, you could say, a clean slate for the new cultures to evolve. And the next one, you have like the Mesopotamian um, core there, and of course, what was happening in China about the same time and India, that they sort of then got a chance to develop in their own way. But I will guarantee you that some of the Atlantean beings have had a part to play in those civilizations growing as fast as they did. If they
Okay.
were direct Atlanteans or not, I'm not 100% sure, but I would say 50% sure. I know the ones that came to Mesopotamia were called Anunnaki. Uh, they were not a homogeneous group themselves. They were from all over the show, you know, and not all of them had the best of intentions either, I must add. But so just it's an obtuse answer to your question, Yanong, but I'd say indirectly, yes, that the Atlantean um, culture maybe came a little indirectly to our new civilizations. Yeah. But we see the remnants of it in Aztec, Central and South America, um, in the form of the buildings. If we're going to find more of what they left behind culturally, I don't know. I kind of doubt it, but I would love to think there was something there.
Something like that. Yeah, yeah. It did um, stir some of these hypotheses that when you found archaeologically these civilizations way more advanced than us today, and then they didn't seem to have a clear lineage with our trajectory of the development.
Mm,
They were already, books out there and saying there were several different civilizations on Earth, uh, maybe not developed from ground zero, but came from somewhere
yes,
else. And some of them left, they just mysteriously disappeared. Some of them left some traces of their culture and then civilization to us. And I actually, for one, firmly believe the things that we had handed down to us, for instance, I Ching, for instance, the Chinese medicine from Yellow Emperor, and that's way more advanced than modern medicine that we humans developed. They already grasp it from not only special, but temporal, and also from the spirit, mind to body. It's holistic and integrated. And also
yes.
it's energy based, and also it's individualized precision medicine. I thought we are still struggle to grasp the totality of it. We only scratch the little surface.
Yes.
They're already showing its incredible power. So I'm sure, that some of the ancient civilization may very well have some heritage from a more
Oh, yes.
advanced, yeah, more
Yes.
advanced civilization to us. Yeah.
If you think about, say, for example, we go back 12,000 years for Homo sapiens, our version of it, I mean now, where you and I come from. 12,000 years ago, we were doing whatever we did with Neanderthals, I guess, and everything. But so Atlantis would have been doing their stuff at the same time. And, I've often wondered how that all worked too. But I guess, even now, we have different animal groups coming up and developing in consciousness, and we were probably in a similar situation then too. So, the interactions between our version of Homo sapiens might have been quite something else than what we even imagined. We may have seen Atlantean people and not recognized them as our own, as uh, that's a big question mark. I don't know any facts on that, but it's
Yeah.
often something I've thought about.
Yeah.
But then
But
after
if you
that,
open your mind and heart to it, the life on Earth just becomes so much more exciting, isn't it? So that brings me to my last question. If Atlantis were proven to truly existed on Earth, wherever it's coming from, what would that great discovery meant to you? Is it your excitement, your super excitement to say, yeah, my vision is approved, is proven, and I want to, find out all about the velocity, or it's rather really about the lessons learned
hmm,
from that civilization for today.
I wouldn't make any difference to me if they found concrete proof, whatever that would be, um, because to me the importance of Atlantis is what we went through there and where it has brought us here today. That's the treasure of Atlantis. The bricks and mortar, it is nearly irrelevant as far as I'm concerned.
So you're not going to be a treasure hunter for the remnants pieces of relics of that civilization, but rather what you experienced and learned that you
Yeah.
can pass on. Okay.
I mean, that's not totally true. If someone dug up an Atlantean temple, I'd go, "Yeehaw! I must go and see it." But I'm not waiting for that to happen. I don't need to.
I
But
would. I would go there and yeehaw because it's
yeah,
not part of my culture genes and memories. So for that, if we're going to wrap up, I would say to you, the Atlantis, it's not so much the fascination of a lost city, but rather it's a mirror. It's a lesson
yes,
that passed on through you to us, to today's human society, what we really need to pay attention to, and what a kind of transformation really need to happen so we don't follow their downfall path.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
That's the treasure of it. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
So I summarized it well, huh?
Beautifully.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lyle. It's always a pleasure
You're
chatting with
so
you
welcome.
on this far-fetched topics, but it's a feast for my mind and heart. So thank you so much. And until next time, this is Elaine Chong signing off. And thanks again to our guest, Lyell Parry, on this episode of Cosmic Gossip. Until next time.